All right, today we're diving into a really powerful and maybe even a little counterintuitive rule from the world of psychoanalysis. It's a concept that kind of challenges our whole modern idea of comfort and satisfaction. But you know what? It might just hold the key to some deep, lasting change. So imagine this. You're in therapy, sharing your most vulnerable thoughts, your deepest feelings. You feel seen, you feel understood, and this incredible connection starts to form. I mean, it's so powerful that you suddenly realize you've fallen in love with your therapist. So what happens then? Is the whole thing just over? You know, this isn't just some dramatic plot for a TV show. It is a really well-documented phenomenon in therapy, and it has a clinical name, transference love. It's this idea that a patient unconsciously takes feelings and desires from important past relationships and puts them right onto their therapist. And it was this exact situation that pushed Sigmund Freud to come up with a pretty groundbreaking rule. And that brings us right to our main topic, Freud's rule of abstinence. It was his direct and, yeah, some might say severe response to this whole dilemma of transference love. But as you're about to see, the logic behind it is actually incredibly powerful. Here's the man himself. Back in 1915, Freud just flat out stated, the treatment must be carried out in abstinence. That's a bold, no-nonsense statement. But what on earth did he actually mean by it? So what does abstinence really mean here? Well, the rule is that the therapist, the analyst, must not gratify the patient's demands. And this isn't just about romance. It applies to any desire for special treatment or approval or any kind of indulgence, whether it's asked for directly or just hinted at. So why? Why be so strict? Well, Freud believed that giving in would only offer this sort of temporary relief. He actually called these things substitute pleasures. Sure, they might make the patient feel better for a minute, but they would completely block the real goal, which is analyzing the source of those feelings to get to a much deeper, more permanent healing. Okay, so we've set up the rule in the context of love, but its application is so much broader than that. It's really a core principle for handling the entire spectrum of feelings a patient might transfer onto their analyst. And the consistency of this rule is absolutely key. With what's called positive transference, feelings of love or admiration, the analyst doesn't give in. But, and this is just as important, with negative transference, let's say the patient sees the analyst as critical or uncaring, the therapist also doesn't get defensive or try to prove them wrong. The one thread that ties it all together is this. It doesn't matter if the feelings are positive or negative, the analyst's job is not to react personally. It's to hold steady and analyze the transference itself. They don't indulge it and they don't fight it. They create a space to understand it. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds pretty cold, right? Maybe even cruel. But that is a huge misunderstanding of what this is all about. So let's clear up 4 really common misconceptions about what this rule actually means in practice. The source material we looked at gives us 4 key clarifications that add some much-needed nuance. First, it's not just about being silent. Second, it's a rule for 2 people, not just one. Third, it's not without kindness. And fourth, it can apply to actions that go way beyond just words. Let's take that first point. Abstinence is not the same as the therapist just sitting there quietly. In fact, a total stony silence can sometimes be felt by the patient as a pretty hostile action in and of itself. So it's way more complex than just not talking. And this leads to a really critical insight. This rule isn't a one-way street. It actually places demands on both people in the room. And here you can see that shared burden. The patient's work is to learn to tolerate the frustration of not getting what they want, but the analyst's job is just as demanding. They have to constantly resist their own natural impulse to reassure, to correct, or to please the patient. This all creates a really unique kind of relationship. It's not a friendship, it's not a mentorship, it's a working alliance that's focused on just one thing: discovery. It's a discipline for both sides, really. And remember those other clarifications, that this rule isn't unkind and can apply beyond just words? Well, they all come from the central idea of a disciplined shared focus. See, true kindness here is shown by holding this difficult frame, not by breaking it for a little bit of temporary relief. So with all that in mind, we can really start to appreciate the ultimate purpose of all this withholding. Why is this disciplined frustration so vital for discovery? By not rushing in to fill the patient's needs, the rule of abstinence creates this tension, this space. And it's right there, in that space, that the patient's deepest patterns, their unconscious conflicts, and their true desires finally have enough room to emerge and be understood. withholding gratification is actually what fuels the entire engine of discovery. It's such a fascinating principle, especially coming from over a century ago, and it really leaves us with a provocative question for our own lives, doesn't it? In a world that is completely built on instant gratification, where pretty much any desire can be met with a click, what can we all learn from the therapeutic power of saying no?